Fantastic, and welcome everybody. I know we'll give just a few moments here as people are kind of transitioning from one session over to another. But clearly, I think one of the great things about today's discussion and thinking about remote enterprise and some of the important work, Dharmendra, that you and your extended team at Sonnet are doing, this is our new normal. Individuals don't work in traditional offices the way we did 3 to 4 years ago. So I think fundamentally how you're looking at this is going to be an absolutely outstanding discussion. And I'll hand it off to you to introduce you and your colleague, and very much looking forward to learning from Sonnet.io and some of the really critical innovation that you're bringing to this, from my view, very much important topic. So thank you for being here.
All right. Yeah, sounds good. Yeah. Thanks, man. It's certainly the new normal, and we wanted to, solve it for the new normal. So we have a sort of novel approach of solving security for remote teams. So I think before we begin, should we wait for a couple more minutes, Matt?
I think we can probably jump in. I don't know if you have any slides that you're going to be sharing.
Yes. So we'll be sharing a few slides, and then we'll actually show a live demo as well.
Fantastic.
Okay, I'll share my screen.
And then I will let you know when it's rendered.
Right.
Fantastic. It's rendered. Thank you very much.
Perfect. So yeah, Shahrukh will be presenting the initial slides. Shahrukh, go ahead with the brief introduction.
Yeah, DM, you want to give a quick intro?
Yeah, sure. I can go first. Yeah, I'm Dharmendra Mohan, go by DM. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Science.io. My background is in network security for close to 20 years, Symantec, before that Blue Coat. And like Matt said, that the world has gone remote, and that's the problem we are trying to solve with Science.io, simplify security and still provide that enterprise-grade security to everyone. Shahrukh, go ahead.
Thanks, DM. My name is Shahrukh Noor, head of sales at Sonnet, and most recently coming from Okta, and been in the cybersecurity space for about 10 years now. So just to kind of kick things off, right? There's some talk in the last session about remote work and how it was a thing pre-COVID, but post-COVID and after it's happened, remote work is definitely has its challenges now with the hybrid environments and the explosion of devices all over the place, and companies even becoming more comfortable with employees working around the world, and even leveraging third parties and contractors around the globe as well. So Sonnet looks to simplify security for remote teams, and we'll talk about how Sonnet's doing that and the approach that we take here. So DM, if you want to go to the next slide. So DM mentioned a long track record at Symantec and Blue Coat, so the founding team, very familiar with network security and building those solutions that you've probably used today, and that's created an opportunity for us to really fill in those gaps of what those solutions have with a fresh approach based off of what's needed in today's environment. So we'll talk a little bit about today's challenge, right? So DM, if you want to go to the next slide. Right. So with the current environment, right, the company network is essentially the internet now, and you have SaaS apps, you have public cloud apps, and you have on-prem apps, all being accessed from employees, contractors, part-time employees, vendors even, and from different devices as well. Could be managed devices, unmanaged, BYOD. Different companies have different type of structures here, right? So the challenge on the managed devices side, right, is you have companies are buying laptops, they're receiving them in-house, they're imaging them, they're putting on their security agents and softwares, and they're shipping it out, right? So maybe going overseas can get held up in customs, or maybe a contractor or even an employee. So sometimes that can take a few days up to a few weeks, and you have a lot of downtime from that perspective. So not only is it expensive from a shipping perspective, and then the agents and maintaining those agents over time as well can be cumbersome with the updates and making sure everything's playing together. Of course, the other option is the unmanaged devices, right? And so unfortunately, that's insecure, right? So you don't have any security software on those devices. It's more of a BYOD type of environment. A lot of startups are, in mid-sized organizations are saying, hey, here's, we'll go buy you a device go pick it up and start using it. And so, that lacks a lot of the protection that we're typically used to in these environments. And so some of the other challenges are also lack of visibility to remote user activity, right? So you have folks that are accessing your SaaS apps, your custom web apps, but you don't know what are they doing with that information, who's accessing it, and what's going on. So that visibility is severely lacking. That's a huge challenge today, right? Another one is data theft and IP theft, right? So there are DLP solutions out there that exist, but they're extremely complicated to use and expensive, and so that's a challenge as well. So in a nutshell, when you look at all the different solutions today, you've got VPNs and you've got some organizations using VDI and BYOD. It's all over the place. A lot of different strategies. Trying to stitch them together is definitely quite challenging, and just creates a lot more problems than solutions at this point. So that's where Sonnet has come in, and just one more slide here, and then we'll jump into a live demo to see the cool technology at work. But the approach that Sonnet takes, step one, is we want to empower all devices. So you have secure access from any device. It can be the device you're sitting on right now. It can be your children's device, a device you go buy from Best Buy. It can be a Chromebook. It can be high-powered device, right? So the objective is to leverage any browser. We give you a dedicated URL. It can be an unmanaged or managed device, and there's no agents at all that need to be installed into the device. And so this allows you to onboard users very quickly, less than 15 minutes. And so now you can onboard an entire company, an entire team, contractor group, or third party in a few minutes. And so that's the first step, is securing access from the device. The second aspect is protecting the data and applications. So there's a built-in DLP layer. So we're kind of sitting in the middle, and when there's access to, say, Salesforce or Gmail, and you want to download something, we're looking at the content of the files against the policies that you've set, right? So these DLP policies can help protect the data. It's no-code policies, super easy to write. We'll show you what it looks like. But you can do things like control source code that you don't want it to be downloaded and exited, emailed out from the organization, or credit card numbers, sensitive data, medical information, whatever criteria you want. We have 150 different categories of criteria, and then you can also search for custom strings as well. But the power is you could literally put one policy in place, and that could apply globally across all of your applications. So that's the DLP layer that gets added on. And then finally, there's the visibility aspect. From the user, the device logging in, where they're logging in from, which applications, what are they doing. We've got full logs of all this information. And then also session recordings as well, optionally. So if you have a violation that occurs in, say, Jira, someone's trying to download something, maybe it's source code, we pop a violation and stop that from happening. We have full visibility of user session recording, what happened leading up to that violation and what happened afterwards as well. So you can decipher, is it external threat, is it an internal threat? Maybe you need it for audit or forensics. And the key thing is, between all of this, there's no VPNs, no agents, no proxies, no VDI. So we're doing this, completely agentless. So any questions before we actually jump into a demo here?
I love this. It's kind of like the browser is the enterprise operating system these days.
Absolutely. Yep. You got it. You nailed the head. You nailed it on the head, right? So if there's no questions, we'll have DM jump into a demo and see actually how this works. Because a lot of comments that we usually get is, how are you able to do this agentless, or this is magic, right? Type of thing. So we're actually going to jump in and show you. So we want it to be interactive. Definitely ask questions along the way in the demo here. We'll keep it, very, very quick.
All right, sounds good. Yeah, thanks, Shahrukh. So let's jump into the demo to see it in action. So it starts, so I'll divide up the demo into aspects. One is the end user journey and what the IT guys need to do to set it all up. So from an end user perspective, they just go to a custom URL that your enterprise will be assigned. So let's say the name of the company is Acme. So I'm going to acme.sign.io. And they log in with their credentials that they've been assigned today. So we don't require any new credentials. So whichever single sign-on solution that you may be using, Okta, AD, Google, any of them work. So they just use that credentials to log into Sonnet. In this case, for this demo, I'm showing you Google credentials. So I log in and walk through the Google login process. And then the user is presented with the screen of exactly the applications they need access to get their job done. So unlike a VPN, we are not giving any full network access. So it's a zero trust solution. So access only to the applications that they need access to. And we support all applications. So it's not a subset of applications. So we support all SaaS apps, all, even your custom web applications and servers as well. All accesses through the browser. There is no VPN, there is no agent, there is no configuration on the device either. So all the user has to do to access their application is click on one of these application tiles. So let's say Salesforce. And the way we are able to provide security without any agents on any device, without any security software on the device, is that the execution of these applications is really happening in our cloud. So Salesforce is really executing in our cloud, and what you see is just the rendering of it. So only the pixels are being sent to the local device, and so there is basically the application and the data contained in the application is protected from any of the malware or any of the compromises that may be running in the local device. And the end user just sees the regular URL, same native experience as if they were to go to Salesforce directly. The only thing that is different is the URL is going to be acme.sign.io. And the other advantage of this approach is, since we are agentless, we do not violate the user privacy as well. So if I were to go to Bank of America, for example, using from the same browser itself, we will not be watching anything, any personal traffic that the user may be using, even if using the same browser. The only thing that we watch is if they go through sign.io. And for the enterprise applications, we watch everything, all the user interaction between the app and the user, which URL they are going to, what they are typing, everything. And we provide layers of security based on the information that is being exchanged between the user and the application. And to further reduce the attack surface area, you can even write rules as to from where you can access a particular application, what time of day, what geolocation. So for example, even if I'm authenticated, I can't go to Gusto because I'm not allowed to go log in from where I am. And then we go further deep into an application. So for example, let's say if I go to Jira, so this is our actually regular Jira instance, single sign-on experience for the end user. It's using Google to log in. So this is the demo Kanban board. I open a user story, let's say, and it has these 3 files attached to this user story, one containing the source code, customer data, some other sensitive information. And like what Shahrukh said, that we provide data exfiltration protection as well. That is built into the service without requiring any changes to the application itself. So like, for example, if the user tries to download the source code from Jira, it says policy violation. And again, we can't change Jira, obviously, and so we can add a layer of security for data theft for any application. It may be a SaaS app, your own custom app without requiring any changes. So in this case, it's a Word document containing customer data. And same thing as for policy, it's denied. I'll show the policy shortly, how easy it is to write such policies. And like I said, we are application independent. So even if I were to go to, let's say, entirely different application, Google Drive, and try to download, let's say, patient information, the same policy applies. We are looking for social security numbers. If a document has SSNs, then it's denied. So yeah, we can basically do a security layer on top of any app without requiring any changes. I'll pause here for any questions before I go on further.
I'll just a couple of comments. It really does simplify the governance of your remote workers, and it does it from what it seems in a number of different kind of proverbial swim lanes. I mean, you've got kind of the proverbial allow list, which applications are tied to this individual, what level of entitlements they should have, et cetera. Above and beyond the fact that you're taking some of the more complex security challenges and fundamentally through innovation, looking at them in a completely different way. You know, that you're not having to deal with a lot of the complexity of traditional DLP approaches, things of that nature. I really like this approach.
Yeah, that's right. So we wanted to take a completely different approach than what exists in the market to provide security for remote teams, and it basically solves the problem comprehensively, like you said. So access control, DLP, which is inbuilt, the air gap between applications and compromises. So it's sort of a complete security provided through a cloud service, delivered through a cloud service.
Exactly. Just my friend and colleague Chris Forbes just kind of highlighted that as well. You know, you think about just kind of SaaS governance in all the dynamics related to that. Maybe if you wouldn't mind a little insights on some of the client experiences where they've gone through and they've adopted Sonnet as an approach, and clearly when you're dealing with implementations that are measured in minutes, not days, weeks, months, quarters, years. This has the fundamental opportunity to kind of change an organization's security posture literally from one day to the next. Would love to hear some of the insights you've had with some of your customers.
Yeah, that's right. So we were talking to a global NGO, and they did not really have much in terms of security, but they are growing rapidly in sort of renewable energy space, which is a huge market. And they have all kinds of devices that they cannot control because besides employees, they have volunteers. And so they sort of love this solution because there's no requirement to put anything in their device. And they were using Active Directory as a single sign-on solution. So we basically had them up and running within an hour. So from start to finish. And basically sort of loved the solution since it doesn't have anything to deploy, no complicated configurations to do or integrate the point solutions. So that basically happened this Monday. So that's basically sort of the aspect that the customers are loving. Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. There's a couple of different scenarios we're also seeing, right? We're seeing some fintechs that they're locking down devices and shipping them out. They're spending $5,000 between shipping, and then it gets held up in customs, and so that's a common thing that we're seeing. Another one is more on the smaller 100 person company. They don't have an SSO and MFA. They don't have all these security solutions. So they even have BYOD, right? So where their employees are using their own devices to log into their own corporate networks, but then also end customer systems because they're doing outsourced services. And so they're leveraging Sonnet to put a lot of barriers in place and control all the credential sharing, and then empower them with a lot more security that they didn't have before. There's other organizations that they're a little bit more modern. They're not sending out devices for contractors and third parties. Maybe they're using AWS workspaces or some VDI environment, but it lacks security controls in those environments, right? So they're leveraging Sonnet as kind of a replacement VDI alternate because most of those users are just using SaaS apps and web apps anyways, and so this is a cheaper alternative and gives them a lot more security controls that they didn't have today. So we're seeing a lot of different use cases that are popping up today.
And then, gentlemen, if I could trouble you maybe to walk through like how some of the policies would be established, like adding net new applications, establishing kind of DLP or data protections.
Yeah, sure. So I'll switch to the admin view. So by the way, we support all browsers, so you don't have to use Chrome. So we support all major browsers. So For the end user, I showed Chrome. Here I'm going to use Firefox for the IT experience. So it starts with integrating with your authentication or single sign-on solution, and you can import the groups from your SSO. So let's say the group name is Sonnet users, and you can assign applications. So it's as simple as assign an application. So let's say Gmail, and that's it. So 2 clicks basically, and when the user logs in again, now they have access to Gmail. So it's that simple. And in terms of policies, so you can build these policies and sort of like a library of policy that you can associate with a particular group. And when you associate that with a group, any users belonging to that group going to any of these applications, that policy applies. So let me take you to one of the policies. Let's say, deny the source code download. So the policy is really simple. That's one of the things that one of the goal that we wanted to achieve, because DLP policies are super complicated. So as you can see, it almost reads like English. Default action allow, content contains source code, deny upload, or content contains source code, deny download. So one line policy, and it'll work for all applications, your SaaS apps, your web apps, just a single line policy. I think like what Shahrukh was saying, it's not just restricted to source code. We have over 150 different categories that you can use to do the content inspection on. Or you can write even your custom strings, like, let's say sensitive. So anything containing sensitive as a keyword. So those documents will not be allowed to be downloaded or uploaded. It works both ways. So we do inspection both for downloads and uploads. That's basically how the policies look like.
Love it.
Can you show the user the logs real quick as well?
Yeah, sure. And in terms of visibility, so one of the challenges that the users are going to SaaS apps and all different kind of apps, and so we've sort of lost the centralized visibility. So we bring that back. So all the demo that I showed you, everything is logged. I went to G Drive, did some violation, went to Jira, did other violations. So all of it is logged, and these violations, these critical logs will be sent to the IT email address. So you can configure that. And you can go even deeper. So this is an optional functionality. But if, let's say, you want to investigate what was DM doing in this particular session, did lots of violations, so you can actually see the entire recording of the session. And we actually go beyond that. We actually tell you exactly where the violation occurred in the recording itself. So these orange dots basically show you where the violations occurred. So I can just jump to the right location. And as you can see, from Jira, I try to download some source code. So you don't have to watch the whole thing.
That certainly simplifies compliance and governance.
Yep, that's right. Or you can go wide in terms of visibility. So you can. So this is a dashboard of all the what your remote users are doing, how many are active, who's doing policy violations. So these are the top offenders. Which group is doing the most violations? Which app is attacked the most? In this case, Jira, G Drive. And what type of attacks are occurring? What type of violations are occurring? So you can use all this feedback to tighten the policies in Sonnet to protect your applications.
Love it.
And creating application is super simple as well. It's just an application is nothing but really a URL. So that's all we need, and the single sign-on integration with that.
What was the epiphany, gentlemen, that you had as you started to develop Sonnet.io? I mean, because clearly you're taking some really, really Herculean challenges and have thought about it from a completely new, innovative way, and have an opportunity, I think, to do some really important disruptive work for good. Simplifying compliance, simplifying security, simplifying governance. All of these are really important aims. Would love to understand kind of the genesis, if you will.
Yeah, sure. So I've been building these solutions for quite a while, and sort of the insight was that the proxy and the agent approach is something that is not sustainable. I saw a lot of friction in terms of development, in terms of how many applications we can support. The proxy approach is essentially become man in the middle for a protocol, SSL, HTTP, and then go even deeper into the protocols that each application has. Now that becomes very, very difficult because the applications change and they end up breaking the proxies. And so we sort of realized that this is not sustainable. And also, given the way compute is evolving, people use all kinds of devices to access their applications, and you can't really restrict them to say just use this specific device. It's always they sort of move around from one device to another. Given that, the agent approach is something, again, not sustainable. It's you have to put agent in every single device they can potentially use. Each person has like 4 or 5 devices these days. And so again, it's not a scalable model and very difficult for IT. So we wanted to do a completely alternate architecture where we can solve the problem of secure access given this new compute environment of many devices and all kinds of apps on the internet. So that's sort of how we started.
I love it. Do we have any questions from some of the folks participating and watching the session? We'll see if those come in here.
Yeah, or if there's any use cases that people can think of where this could be useful for them.
I'll kind of pepper it for just a moment. Obviously, when you take a new approach to a historic problem, there are times where the audit community, the governance community, kind of the oversight communities are having to kind of grapple and get up to speed with it. If you had concerns or issues surfaced with like auditors looking at this approach and kind of coming in and saying, yes, this does indeed provide the level of assurance we would have requested?
Yeah, I think the feedback from the customers has been very, very positive, and even from customers, large enterprises that have sophisticated stack. And I think the reason why that is that they have a problem, they have an immediate problem, and to onboard, let's say, third-party contractors, and this solution solves it for them. And so they are willing to adopt, they are willing to try, and they like the approach. They find it very logical. It makes sense to them. So basically we have a customer problem, and we have an elegant solution to solve that problem, and that's why we are able to make sort of headways.
Excellent. My friend and colleague Chris Forbes has a point there in the chat about kind of threat models and man-in-the-middle attacks. I know we have just a couple of minutes left, so I don't know if either of you gentlemen want to take on that question.
Yeah, do we want to maybe address Dave's question first?
Yeah, Dave's, and I'm so sorry, Dave.
So DM, it's the question is any capability with BYOD usage, essentially users that are using personal systems connect to use corporate resources, Sonnet used to secure that in a mandatory way. Basically, how can you prevent users from bypassing Sonnet?
I see. So yeah, we achieved that through the SSO integration. So you cannot be authenticated if you were to bypass. You can configure any of your solutions such that they accept authentication requests only from Sonnet. So that's how we enable to not allow users to go.
Yeah. Do you have that set up on your Jira right now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say if they were to go direct instead of through Sonnet. So this is our Jira site. As you can see, it says there was a problem accessing this content because Jira is trying to authenticate directly, and it's not allowed unless you go through Sonnet.
So Dave, hopefully that answers your question. We are in the booth later on today if you want to talk about that further. And then DM Chris's question, is this approach subject to man-in-the-middle attacks from a threat modeling perspective?
Subject to man-in-the-middle attack, I don't think so. Again, I think probably we need to dig deep into what you are thinking in terms of, but I mean, what we are doing is sort of providing an air gap between a BYOD and the application access.
You know what we may have to do, because we have to start our next session when we have kind of the booth. Why don't we come back and we'll do a little bit of a deep dive into that area? But this was fantastic, gentlemen, and thank you so much. I'm very, very excited to have you guys here with us today. So
thanks, man.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, man. Thanks, guys.